Stupid, brainless. You will keep having babies until you give me a son. My husband hit me in the stomach when I was 7 months pregnant, demanding a boy. The ultrasound showed it was a girl, and the whole family was furious. But when I gave birth, even the doctors were shocked. It was 7 a.m. outside, the October dawn was just starting to show, but inside the apartment, the air felt tense, like it was filled with the poison of yesterday's fight. Katya carefully turned her head. Igor was sleeping, arms spread out. Even in his sleep, his face looked unhappy. He was 35 years old, but deep wrinkles had already formed on his forehead. Constant anger and irritation had turned what used to be a nice guy into a bitter man. Katya slowly got out of bed, trying not to creak the springs. At 7 months pregnant, every move was hard, but she was used to being quiet, used to not waking the sleeping beast. In the girls' room, her daughters were sleeping peacefully. Lisa, 6 years old and the oldest, slept on the top bunk, her arm hanging down. 4-year-old Sonia hugged a teddy bear on the bottom bunk. 2-year-old Masha snored softly in her crib, her chubby cheeks moving in her sleep. My princesses, Katya thought, her heart full of love and fear. What if this pregnancy ended with another girl? What if Igor completely lost control? In the kitchen, she turned on the kettle, careful not to make noise. She automatically started preparing breakfast, porridge for the girls, sandwiches, tea. Her movements were practiced and mechanical. 4 years of courage had taught her to be the perfect housewife, cooking, cleaning, washing, while still working as a daycare teacher. Suddenly, Lisa, in her pink unicorn pajamas, ran into the kitchen. "What are we eating today?" she asked. "Oatmeal with berries." Katya smiled, hiding her tiredness behind motherly warmth. "Wake up, little sister." "Okay." Lisa nodded and ran back. Within a minute, all 3 girls were bustling around the kitchen, chatting and asking about cartoons and toys. Their lively voices filled the apartment, breaking the heavy silence. "What's all the noise so early?" Igor appeared in the doorway, wearing just underwear and a tank top. His hair was messy, and his face looked crumpled from sleep and last night's beer. The girls immediately quieted down. Lisa instinctively moved closer to her mother. Sonia hid behind a chair. "Good morning," Katya said softly. Breakfast was ready. Igor grunted something unclear and plopped down in a chair. Katya put a plate of scrambled eggs and a cup of tea in front of him. He ate silently, occasionally giving the girls unhappy looks. "Looks like a women's kingdom in here," he muttered, finishing his food. "Everywhere I look, it's women. I'm the only man in the house." Katya said nothing, but her fingers clenched the edge of the table. Lately, this phrase came up more and more. A women's kingdom, as if her daughters were some kind of punishment, not a blessing. Maybe this time it would be different? Igor nodded toward her belly. Maybe at last there would be a real man in the house. "Igor," Katya started carefully, "the kids can hear everything." "Let them hear," he shouted. "Let them know the family needs a son to carry on the name, not just girls." Lisa started to cry. Katya quickly hugged her daughter and gently patted her head. "Girls, go get dressed," she said softly. "It's almost time for kindergarten." The children quietly ran off. Igor finished his tea and went to the bathroom, slamming the door loudly. Katya was left alone in the kitchen, leaning against the sink. In the mirror opposite her, she saw the tired face of a 32-year-old woman who looked more like 40. Dark circles under her eyes, pale skin, and hair tied back in a messy ponytail. "When did I become like this?" she thought. At the kindergarten, Katya became a different person. She was the favorite teacher of the middle group. Here, people valued and respected her. The children ran to her with open arms, told her secrets, and asked her to read stories again. "Ekaterina Mikhailovna, you look sad today," said 5-year-old Varya, looking at her with curious brown eyes. "No, sweetheart, I'm just a little tired," Katya smiled. "Let's draw instead." "My dad says when mom is sad, you should give her a hug," Varya said seriously and hugged Katya tightly. Katya's heart jumped. So simple and wise in a child's way. When was the last time Igor hugged her just like that, with no demands or complaints. Katya, how are you? Andrei Nikolaevich, the music teacher, peeked into the room. He was tall and thin, with kind gray eyes behind glasses. Though he was 29, he acted very openly and friendly. Maybe we can do a music lesson today? He asked. Of course, Katya nodded. The kids will love it. Andrei brought a guitar and a keyboard. The children crowded around him, asking him to sing songs about bears and rain. Katya watched how patiently he tuned the instruments and talked gently to the kids. Let's sing a song about family, Andrei suggested. About mom, dad, and the children. The kids started singing a simple tune. Katya joined in, but the words suddenly felt false. Mom, dad, and me. A happy family. What family? Where is the happiness if dad thinks his daughters are a burden? Ekaterina Mikhailovna. Andrei quietly called her as the children ran off to play. Are you okay? You seem lost today. Katya flinched. Was it really that obvious? I'm fine, just tired because of the pregnancy, she said. I get tired easily. Andrei looked at her carefully and nodded, but Katya saw something else in his eyes. Sympathy, understanding? She turned away. You can't get used to kindness. At home, a harsh reality waits. After lunch, sending the kids to their nap, Katya went to the women's clinic. Dr. Marina Viktorovna, an older woman with tired but kind eyes, examined her and frowned. Katya, your blood pressure is high and your heart is beating fast. You're a bit nervous, Katya answered carefully. Pregnancy should be a joy, not stress, the doctor said strictly. Why don't you bring your husband? Other patients always come with their husbands. Katya stayed silent. How could she tell her husband thought doctor visits were women's business and never came to an ultrasound? Okay, let's look at the baby, the doctor said, turning on the ultrasound machine. Blurry shapes appeared on the screen. Katya looked at her baby, tiny hands, legs, and a heart beating like a little bird. Well, the doctor turned to her with a gentle smile. Congratulations. You're having a daughter. The world seemed to stop. Katya stared at the screen showing the heartbeat of her fourth daughter and felt panic rising inside. Are you sure? She asked hoarsely. Absolutely. See, right here it's clear. The baby girl is healthy and growing well. Katya nodded and took the ultrasound results with shaking hands. In the clinic hallway, she sat down on a bench, looking at the picture. A tiny girl, her little baby, who hadn't done anything wrong. What will happen now? Her mind was ringing with alarm. At home, Katya made dinner on autopilot. Igor watched TV. The kids played in their room. A normal family evening, but Katya felt like a storm was coming. At 7 p.m., as usual, someone knocked on the door. It was Galina Petrovna, her 58-year-old mother-in-law, a dyed blonde with a forever unhappy face. She came almost every day to check on her son and to tell Katya what she thought about her woman's duties. My dear son, she kissed Igor and then looked at Katya. You look pale, probably tired from work again. I've always said, a pregnant woman should stay home. Mom, we've talked about this, Igor said tiredly. We can't live on my salary alone. Well, if you had a proper wife who could give you sons, Galina Petrovna gave Katya a meaningful look. There wouldn't be any problems. A man in the house means stability and the family's future. Katya clenched her fists but stayed silent. The girls peeked out from their room listening. Did you get an ultrasound done? Her mother-in-law suddenly asked. Katya froze. The results were in her bag like a sentence. Yes, she said quietly. Galina Petrovna's eyes flashed with a sharp fire. Igor lifted his head from the TV and stared at his wife. Answer me, Katya. His voice was threatening. Katya looked at her husband, then at her mother-in-law, then at her daughters standing quietly by the door, and finally at her belly, where another little girl was growing, unwanted even before she was born. It's still too early to say for sure, she lied. The doctor said to wait another month. Igor relaxed, but Galina Petrovna frowned. That's strange. Nowadays, by the 7th month, it's always clear. You know Irina from our building? She gave birth to 3 boys in 4 years. 3. Now that's a wife. Mom, stop, Igor grumbled. But his voice sounded like he agreed. Galina Petrovna talked for another hour about neighbors who knew how to give birth the right way, about the importance of continuing the family line, and how a woman without a son was not really a woman, just an empty space. When the mother-in-law finally left, Katya put the girls to bed. Lisa snuggled close and quietly asked, Mom, is it true that me and my sisters are bad? Katya's heart broke. No, sweetheart. She hugged her daughter tightly. You are the best girls in the world, the most loved. But Dad says the family needs a boy. A family needs love, Katya said softly. And I have you. That's enough. But when the children fell asleep, Katya sat by the window and cried. Silently, bitterly, feeling hopeless. What will happen when the truth comes out? How will she protect her girls from their father's disappointment and anger? Outside, the twilight grew darker, and Katya felt something dark and scary closing in on her life. But she didn't know then that the worst was still ahead. Katya, stop acting like a schoolgirl. Igor slammed the fridge door and turned to his wife. A month has passed. It's time to know for sure. Boy or again. He didn't finish, but the poisonous word girl hung in the air. Katya stood by the stove, stirring the soup, feeling her palms get sweaty. She had been putting off this moment for 3 days, making excuses, but the time was up. Igor. She turned and met his hard stare. The doctors said what she said. Her voice got quieter but more dangerous, like a predator getting ready to strike. The girls played in the living room. Their laughter came softly. Masha babbled in her baby talk. Sonia read a book to her, carefully pronouncing the words. Lisa built a house from blocks. A normal happy family scene about to break into pieces. Girl, Katya whispered. It will be a girl. Igor froze. For a second or two. Then his face turned bright red, like blood rushing to his head. What? He roared so loudly Katya jumped back. Again, a girl. Are you making fun of me? Igor, quiet. The kids are here. Who cares about the kids? He shouted, stepping closer with his fists clenched. For years I've been waiting for a son, and every time you give me girls. That's not up to me, Katya tried to explain, pressing her back against the stove. Half the baby is from the man. That's biology. Don't you dare give me lectures. Igor yelled. Other women have sons. What? Are you broken? At that moment, Galina Petrovna burst into the kitchen. She had had the keys to their apartment since the wedding, just in case, as she said. Now that time had come. What's going on here? She looked at her son, red with anger, and at Katya pressed against the stove. Igor, what happened? Again, a girl. Igor spat. The 4th girl in a row. Galina Petrovna slowly turned to Katya. There was poisonous joy in her eyes. Finally, a reason to release all her anger. Oh, really? She clicked her tongue. Aren't you ashamed? You'll send your husband to the grave with all these girls. Galina Petrovna, please, Katya begged. The kids can hear. Let them hear. The mother-in-law stepped closer, her face twisted with contempt. Let them know what kind of mother they have. Not a woman, just an empty space. Mom, you're right. Igor supported her. Maybe she's not even pregnant by me. Maybe she's been cheating. Katya felt like she'd been doused with icy water. These words hurt more than any slap. How can you say that? She whispered barely. I never. How should I know? Igor stepped closer. 4 girls in a row? That's not normal. Maybe you should get tested, Galina Petrovna added bitterly. Just in case. Something clicked in Igor's head. The doubts his mother had been planting for years poured out all at once. Are you a slut? He hissed. Who's the father? That idiot from the daycare, Katya said. Igor, are you crazy? She tried to step back, but the stove was behind her. So, there is someone at the daycare? Igor's eyes burned with rage. I knew it, you cursed woman. He raised his hand. Katya instinctively covered her belly. Don't. There's a baby there. What baby? Igor screamed. Someone else's. You will keep having babies until you give me a son, you stupid idiot. He punched her stomach, once, then again. Katya screamed and slid down the wall. Pain ripped through her like she was being torn apart inside. Igor, stop. Even Galina Petrovna was scared. What are you doing? But Igor seemed crazy. He kicked Katya while she lay on the floor, shouting nonsense. She curled up, trying to protect her belly, feeling something tearing inside. Daddy, stop. Lisa ran into the kitchen. Then Sonia came with Masha in her arms. The kids cried and screamed. Get out. Igor shouted at his daughters. None of your business. Lisa ran to her mother, trying to shield her. Igor pushed Lisa roughly and she fell, hitting her head on a chair. Lisa. Katya tried to get up, but a new wave of pain hit her lower belly. She felt wetness, sticky and warm, between her legs. Igor, she's bleeding. Galina Petrovna shouted, pointing at the floor. Neighbors downstairs were already banging on the radiator. The screams could be heard throughout the building. Apparently, Aunt Vera from next door couldn't stand it anymore and rang the doorbell. Open the door. What's going on in there? She knocked hard with her fist. Igor, open up, Katya whispered hoarsely. I need help. Igor was pacing around the kitchen like a trapped animal. Galina Petrovna fussed, trying to take the crying granddaughters away. What have I done? Igor muttered. What have I done? Aunt Vera didn't wait for an answer and went to call emergency services. 20 minutes later, paramedics arrived at the apartment. What happened? A young medic asked, seeing Katya lying on the floor in a pool of blood. I fell, she rasped, lying. I fell badly. The medic looked carefully at her, then at Igor pacing in the kitchen, and at scared Galina Petrovna with the children. He didn't argue but wrote something in his notes. Let's get you on the stretcher. Threat of miscarriage. As they carried Katya out, she saw neighbors' faces peeking through their doors, sympathetic, frightened, judging. Aunt Vera crossed herself and whispered something about young people nowadays. Mom, Lisa cried, trying to break free from her grandmother's arms. Mom, don't leave me. It'll be okay, sweetheart. Katya weakly smiled. Mom will be back soon. In the ambulance, the medics silently set up in 4. Katya lay on her side, feeling every bump cause pain in her belly. Is your husband upset because of the baby's gender? The medic quietly asked. Katya said nothing. It happens a lot. Sometimes men don't react well, but you must understand. This can end in tragedy. Not just for the baby. At the hospital, they put her in intensive care. Dr. Marina Viktorovna, whom Katya already knew, examined her with a serious face. Katya, what happened? And don't say you fell. Look at these bruises. Katya grabbed the doctor's hand. Is the baby alive?
For now, yes.
But the condition is critical. Placenta is detaching, bleeding. You need complete rest. No stress. But my daughters are waiting at home, Katya whispered. They can wait. But this baby might not, if you don't take care of yourself, the doctor said firmly. Do you have any family besides your husband? Katya shook her head. Her parents had died long ago. No sisters or friends. Over 4 years of marriage, Igor had slowly cut her off from everyone. Then you'll stay here at least a week and seriously think about your life. At home, Galina Petrovna sat the girls on the couch and spoke in her sweet voice. Girls, Mommy is in the hospital because she was very upset. She was upset because she couldn't give Daddy a son. See how important it is for the family to have a boy. Mommy feels very guilty. She can't give you a brother. Lisa listened quietly. Something inside her little heart broke. Sonia cried and called for Mommy. Little Masha reached out to the door, calling, Mommy, Mommy. But Mommy wasn't home. And when she came back, the world would never be the same, because some words and hits leave scars that never heal. In the hospital room, Katya lay staring at the ceiling. The hospital smelled of bleach and stranger's pain. She had been there 3 days already, looking out at the gray October sky. And 4 drip in her hand, dull pain in her belly, and silence. For the first time in years, Real silence with no yelling, no blame, no demands. Strangely, she didn't miss home. She didn't worry if Igor had ironed her shirt or made breakfast for the girls. Here in the hospital bed, she was just Katya. Not a failed wife, not a disappointing mother, just herself. A quiet knock on the door broke her thoughts. Andrei stood at the door with a bunch of daisies and some children's drawings in his hands. He looked unsure, like he didn't know if he should come in. "Andrei," Katya said, sitting up a little surprised. "How did you find me?" "They told me at the kindergarten you were sick," he said carefully as he stepped inside and put the flowers on the nightstand. "I thought it would be lonely in the hospital," he added softly. Katya felt tears coming to her eyes. When was the last time someone cared if she was lonely? When was the last time someone came just to support her? "The children in the group sent you these drawings," Andrei said, spreading the colorful papers on the bed. Varia drew a rainbow to help Ekaterina Mikhailovna get better, and Maxim drew a car, so she could come home faster. Katya took one drawing. The children's messy scribbles, but full of love and honesty. Tears fell without her control. "Sorry," she said, wiping her eyes on the hospital gown. "Maybe it's the hormones," Andrei said quietly, sitting down on a chair next to the bed. "Or just tiredness. I saw how you looked these last months, like you were carrying the whole world on your shoulders." Katya looked at him through her tears. For the first time in 32 years, she felt like a teenager who was finally understood. "Andrei, how are my girls?" "Lisa, Sonia, Masha," she asked. "Igor takes them to kindergarten. Lisa worries a lot and keeps asking when you will come back. The little one cries at night," he told her. Katya's heart squeezed. She had left her children at the worst moment of their lives. Left them with a father who calls them a burden and a grandmother who makes them feel guilty. "I'm a bad mother," she whispered. "What?" Andrei leaned closer. "Katya, what are you saying? You're the best mother I know. The best mother wouldn't go to the hospital leaving her children. The best mother wouldn't let anyone hit her belly when she's 7 months pregnant," he said sharply, and Katya shivered. There was silence. Andrei clenched his fists, then slowly relaxed them. "Sorry," he added quietly. "But when I saw bruises on Lisa, she fell just like you. When that happened, I understood." Katya covered her face with her hands. So everyone could see. Everyone knew how weak she was, how she couldn't protect even her own children. "You're not to blame," Andrei said firmly. "Do you hear that? You're not to blame. Not for having girls, not for your husband hitting you. He's the one to blame." Those words felt like a revelation. Not to blame. For 4 years, Katya had blamed herself. Not cooking right, not looking right, not behaving right. And now someone tells her, "You're not to blame." "But he's my husband," she said weakly. "The father of my children." "So what?" Andrei leaned even closer. "That doesn't give him the right to hit you, to threaten you." "Katya, look at yourself in the mirror. You've aged 5 years in one." She really looked. In the window's reflection, she saw an exhausted face, dull eyes, trembling lips. "I don't know how to live any other way," she admitted. "Want to learn?" Andrei's voice was so gentle that Katya caught her breath. He took her hand, warm, dry, strong. Nothing like Igor's rough hands. "I want to," she whispered, surprised by her own courage. At that moment, the door slammed open loudly. Katya jumped on the bed. And here he was. Igor stumbled into the room, drunk, messy, red-eyed. "Lying here like a queen, while the kids cry at home," he growled. Behind him, Galina Petrovna shuffled in, looking guilty. "Igor, I told you not to come today," she said. "Shut up, mother," he snapped and went straight to the bed. "And what are you doing here?" He glared at Andrei. "Visiting a colleague," Andrei said calmly, but didn't let go of Katya's hand. "A colleague?" Igor sneered. "Looks like a very close visit. Is this the guy from the kindergarten?" "Igor, stop." Katya tried to step in. "I won't," he said, grabbing her shoulder hard. "You explain what's going on here." "Take your hands off her," Andrei said coldly, standing up. He was taller than Igor and much calmer. Igor let go of Katya and turned to Andrei. Are you going to protect someone else's wife? I'm going to protect a woman from a jerk, Andrei said. Igor raised his hand to hit, but Andrei caught it. Not angrily, but firmly. If I were you, I'd calm down, Andrei warned. This is a hospital. Your wife is at risk of losing the baby. Aren't you ashamed? I am ashamed, Igor shouted. But is she ashamed, fooling around here with other men? Maybe this baby isn't even mine. Katya went pale. What? For girls in a row. That's not normal. So maybe she's pregnant by someone else. Galina Petrovna nodded like a bobblehead. I always said something wasn't right here. Enough! Katya shouted so loud that everyone went quiet. Enough. It's not my fault we have girls. It's not my fault you can't accept it. And if you ever raise your hand to me again, what are you going to do? Igor smirked. Divorce you? Who'd want you with 4 kids? I'll throw you out on the street, take the children, and you'll be left crying by the fence. Katya looked at her husband, red-faced, sweaty, full of hate, and suddenly realized she wasn't afraid of him anymore. The fear was gone. Instead, she felt disgust. I'm calling security, Andrei said, reaching for the nurse call button. No need. Katya stopped him. Igor, leave right now. I'm your husband, he shouted. I have the right. You have no right to hit your pregnant wife or scare the children, she said firmly. Get out of this room. Now. Igor was confused. He didn't know this Katya, strong, tough, not asking but demanding. Igor, come on, Galina Petrovna fussed. See, she's sick nervous. No, Mom. Igor slowly walked to the bed. She's healthy and clever. Thinks I'm a fool. He leaned close and whispered so only Katya could hear. If I find out the baby's not mine, I'll kill you and him both. Then he stood up and gave a fake smile. Get well soon, dear wife. We're waiting at home. When they left, Katya fell back on the pillow, exhausted. Andrei sat next to her and took her hand. Why do you put up with this? He asked quietly. What else can I do? She looked at him through tears. He was right. Who would want her with 4 kids? I do, Andrei said simply. Katya froze. Her heart beat so loud, she thought the whole hospital could hear it. You want me? He gently touched her cheek. Just as she was, with children, problems, and that unbearable tenderness for every child in the kindergarten. Andrei. She wanted to say something, but he put a finger on her lips. Don't decide anything now. Just know you're not alone, and when you're ready, I'll be here. He leaned in and kissed her gently. Not like Igor, rough and demanding, but softly, like she was fragile and precious. Katya felt something soften inside her, like an icy shell she'd carried for years was melting. I won't let you down, she whispered. You have your whole life ahead, Andrei said. And you are the most amazing woman I've ever met, he added quickly. And if you give me a chance, I'll show you that love can be different, that a man can protect, not destroy. They sat holding hands. For the first time in 4 years, Katya felt alive. Not just surviving, alive. Her baby kicked inside her, and suddenly she thought, what if this is Andrei's son? What if fate is giving me a chance to start over? The nurse's voice sounded muffled, like through cotton. Katya squeezed the nurse's hand with all her strength. Labor started that night, sudden and fast. The 8th month, a month early, but the doctor said, that's normal after so much stress. I see the head, the nurse shouted. One more push. One last cry, then silence. Then the baby cried, loud and strong. A boy, the nurse said, surprised, holding up the baby. The ultrasound was wrong. You have a son. Katya lay back on the pillow, exhausted. A boy? How is this possible? She whispered. 3 ultrasounds showed a girl. She was sure of it. Let me hold him, she said softly. The baby lay on her chest, tiny, wrinkled, but so alive. Dark hair, little clenched fists. He opened his eyes, gray, like Andrei's. A thought flashed in her mind. What a handsome boy, the nurse said happily. He was strong, even though he was born early. Heavy footsteps came down the hall. It was Igor. He had been waiting near the maternity ward all night for news. Yekaterina Vasilieva gave birth, he said, his voice tense. Yes, congratulations, the nurse shouted cheerfully. It's a boy. Silence. Then a wild cry of joy. My son. I told you, I knew it. The door to the room flew open. Igor burst in, red with happiness, holding a bouquet of roses and a box of chocolates. Katya, he rushed to the bed. You did it. You had my son. He bent to kiss her, and Katya smelled his cologne and mint candy. Igor had prepared for this moment. Let me see him. He carefully took the baby in his arms. He looks just like me. Look at that forehead, those hands. He's going to be strong. Katya watched him quietly. Just like that, everything changed. An hour ago, she felt like a failure for not having a boy. Now she was a hero, the mother of the family's heir. What will we name him? Igor asked, not looking away from the baby. I was thinking, Katya started. Igor Jr., he announced proudly. The next Vasilyev, he smiled. Igor Igorovich. Or maybe a different name, she suggested carefully. What different name? He's my son, and will carry my name. That's right, little guy. He squeezed the baby. You'll be like your dad, strong, smart, a real man. Galina Petrovna appeared in the doorway with a huge bouquet and a cake. Well, is my grandson here? She asked. She stopped, seeing Igor holding the baby. Oh, finally a grandson, she said, tears in her eyes. She took the baby, holding him close. What a handsome boy. Just like his grandpa. May he rest in peace. A real man has joined the family, she said quietly to Katya. We have 3 daughters, Katya said. That's different. The mother-in-law waved her off. Girls are just noise, but a boy is the foundation of the family, the support. Igor beamed with pride. He took out his phone and started calling friends. Sergey, he's born. I have a son. Yes, Igor Jr.
What?
Of course. We're celebrating. Book a table at the Golden Dragon. Katya listened to him happily chatting and felt a strange emptiness inside. She should be happy, but she felt uneasy. Why do they love her now? Just because she had a boy? Katya. Galina Petrovna sat down by the bed. Forgive an old fool. I was angry at you, but you gave the family a good son. Now everything will be different. Katya looked at the same woman who, a month ago, called her worthless. Now Galina Petrovna smiled, stroked her hand, and called her dear daughter. What about the girls? Katya asked. The girls? They're at kindergarten. We'll bring them this evening so they can see their little brother. Galina Petrovna waved off. Igor, when do we do the christening on the 40th day? Without hesitation, Igor answered. At St. Nicholas Church. We'll find a good priest and do everything properly, they said, planning the baby's future without asking Katya. Kindergarten, school, sports clubs, university. Igor already saw his son as an engineer, just like himself. Maybe he'll want to be a musician? Katya said quietly. A musician? Igor laughed.
No way.
That's not a man's job. My son will be a real man, a tech guy like his dad. Katya thought about Andrei and quickly pushed the thought away, scared of what she felt. In the evening, the girls were brought in. Liza, Sonia, and Masha walked quietly into the room, holding close to Grandma Galina Petrovna. They looked confused and a little scared. Mom, Liza ran to the bed and hugged Katya. I missed you so much. I missed you too, sunshine, Katya said, holding her daughter close. How's everything? How's kindergarten? Dad said we have a little brother now, Liza said seriously. And he's going to be the boss of the family, she added. Why the boss? Katya asked, surprised. Because he's a boy, Sonia explained. Grandma says boys are more important than girls. Galina Petrovna cleared her throat awkwardly. Kids don't understand it right, she said. They understand perfectly, Igor said proudly. A son is the family's future. The girls will get married, and that's it. The son will carry on the family name and the father's work. Masha reached for her mom, trying to climb on the bed, but Igor stopped her. Careful, there's a little brother here. Don't bother him. The 2-year-old pouted, upset. Katya picked her up and sat her next to herself and the baby. "This is your little brother," she said softly. "Little Igor. He's so tiny." Liza whispered. "Why is he so red?" "All newborns look like that," Katya smiled. "You were red too." Meanwhile, Igor was calling half the city to share the news, his voice full of pride. "Can you believe it? We waited for years, and now a boy. I told you it would happen. Patience and hard work pay off." Katya listened and thought, patience and hard work. As if she were a baby-making machine, not a real person. 4 years of marriage felt like failed experiments. And now, finally, success. Igor. He came to her bedside when the girls had fallen asleep. "You made me the happiest man alive today." He kissed her forehead gently and stroked her hair. He was kind and caring, brought flowers and chocolates, and promised to buy her anything she wanted. "Igor," she began carefully, "what if it had been a girl again?" He stopped and then smiled. "Why think about that? We have a son now, thank God. Now we can live in peace." "And the girls? Aren't they important?" "Of course," he waved it off. "But not like a boy. You know, the man is the foundation of the family. Women are helpers." Katya stayed quiet. Liza snuggled next to her, holding her hand. Sonia curled up at her feet. Masha sucked her thumb in her sleep. Her girls, who just yesterday were a burden, were now just helpers. "I'll take the day off work tomorrow," Igor went on. "I'll go pick out the best crib and stroller for my son."
For my son.
"Not ours, mine." Katya felt like she was just an incubator. That night, after everyone left, Katya lay awake, watching the sleeping baby in the crib next to her. He looked like her, delicate face, long eyelashes. But his eyes were like Andre's. She remembered that night in the hospital. The kindness, the kiss, the words that she was not alone. And a week after leaving the hospital, their closeness was different. Not rough and demanding like with Igor, but gentle, like she was precious. But it can't be, Katya told herself. The dates don't add up. Or do they? The baby moved in his sleep and made a little face. Katya carefully took him in her arms and held him close to her chest. "So, who is your daddy, little one?" she whispered. "What will happen if the truth suddenly comes out?" Katya thought, but the baby just breathed softly, resting his head on her shoulder. Outside the window, the dawn of a new day was breaking, the day Katya became a good wife, giving her husband a son. But strangely, she didn't feel happy. One emptiness inside her was replaced by another. She had a worried feeling that this victory might only be the start of new problems. At the same time, Andre also couldn't sleep that night. He counted the days, thinking about that hospital night, his heart full of fear and hope at the same time. Could it really be true? He wondered, looking at the brightening sky. Time will tell. Time always shows the truth. A month passed like a storybook. Igor was busy with the son, carrying him around like a heavy bag, buying toys, taking him to doctors, and bragging to his friends. Katya enjoyed the unusual peace. No one yelled at her or called her a failure. But stories often end. Pediatrician Olga Semyonovna carefully looked at little Igor's test results. "What are your and your husband's blood types?" she asked. Katya was feeding the baby during the checkup. The little boy was sucking milk, breathing softly through his nose. He was 1 month old, and Igor had insisted on full tests to make sure the baby was healthy. "I'm type A negative," Katya answered. "And your husband?" "I don't remember exactly. I think type O positive." The doctor frowned and looked at the tests again. "Your baby has type AB negative blood. This is very rare, only 3% of people have it." "And what's strange about that?" Katya asked, feeling her heart beat faster. "With your and your husband's blood types, your baby cannot have AB negative blood. It's genetically impossible," the doctor said carefully. The world around Katya started to spin. She held the baby tighter, as if he might disappear. "Maybe there was a mistake with your husband's blood type," the doctor suggested. "It's worth checking again." "Yes," Katya whispered hoarsely. "I'll check." At home, she sat in the kitchen, rocking the baby, thinking hard. AB negative blood. She clearly remembered Igor was type O positive. He had bragged about it, saying he was a universal donor. Andre had AB negative. He had once said at kindergarten that he rarely got sick, but it was hard to find matching blood if he did. Oh God, what have I done? Katya thought, looking at the sleeping baby. Suddenly Igor came in with diapers and baby food. How's the air doing? He asked happily. What did the doctor say? Katya looked up. Igor was smiling, tanned and satisfied. A man who finally got what he dreamed of. Everything is fine, she lied. The baby is healthy. Of course, healthy. Igor took the baby, tossed him gently in the air. Our strong boy is growing, he said. Look at those strong hands and legs. Little Igor woke up and started crying. Big Igor quickly began to calm him down. Shush, son. Daddy's here. Everything is okay, little one. Katya watched this scene and felt terror deep inside. Igor loved this baby so much. For the first time in 4 years of marriage, she saw him truly happy. But what will happen when he finds out the truth? Katya lived for a week, like on a volcano. Igor kept talking about plans for their son's future, kindergarten, school, university, working at his company. Grandma Galina Petrovna knitted little suits for the baby and sang lullabies. The girls adored their little brother, running around him with joy. Then one Saturday morning, everything fell apart. Katya, what's this paper? Igor was holding the baby's test results, the ones she forgot to hide. Just regular tests. She tried to brush it off. AB negative blood type. Igor slowly read the words again. And mine is O positive. There was silence. Katya felt like her whole world was falling apart. Igor, she began quietly, sometimes mistakes happen. What mistakes? His voice turned dangerously quiet. I know my blood type very well. O positive. And you're a negative. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Hello, Marina Viktorovna? This is Igor Vasilyev, Katya's husband. Tell me, with our blood types, can a baby have AB negative? Katya watched as his face changed, from confusion to suspicion to anger. I see. He hung up. It's genetically impossible. Little Igor lay peacefully in his crib, breathing softly. The children played in the next room, but in the kitchen, a tragedy was unfolding. Explain to me, Katya, Igor said, stepping closer. How can my son have a blood type that I can't have? I don't know, she whispered. You don't know? He grabbed her shoulders tightly. Then I'll explain. This isn't my son. Igor, what are you saying? She cried out, her voice shaking the windows. You gave me someone else's bastard. I was proud, bragged to my friends for a whole month, and he's not even mine. Katya tried to step back, but Igor held her firmly. Whose child is he? Who's the father? The musician from the kindergarten? The girls appeared in the room, scared and crying. Daddy, don't shout, Lisa begged. Shut up. Igor yelled at his daughter. Your mother, do you understand? She cheated on me. Igor, the children can't hear you, Katya pleaded. Let them hear. Let them know what kind of mother they have. At that moment, Galina Petrovna came into the apartment with her keys. Seeing the fight, she stopped. What's going on? Your daughter-in-law. She spit out, Igor said. The baby's not mine. Galina Petrovna slowly turned to Katya. Her eyes burned with angry justice. I always knew, she hissed. She's a tramp. Always knew. No. Katya tried to defend herself. It's not true. Not true. Igor shook the test results. And this? Genetic test. Black and white. The baby's not mine. Maybe the lab made a mistake? Katya suggested weakly. Mistake. Igor laughed bitterly. Then we'll do another test. A DNA test. We'll see who's lying. He grabbed his phone and started dialing a private clinic. Hello, I need an urgent genetic test. Yes, a paternity test. Can you do it tomorrow? Great. Katya sat down, feeling her legs go weak. It's over. Tomorrow, everything will be clear. Meanwhile, Igor went to the baby's crib. This one doesn't live here anymore. What are you doing? Katya asked, scared. I'm taking what's mine. He started carrying baby things out of the room. The crib is mine, the stroller is mine, the clothes are mine. I bought everything for my son, not for a stranger's child. Igor, stop. Katya rushed to him. He's a baby. He's 1 month old. Not my baby, he shouted. And he won't live in my house. Galina Petrovna stood in the doorway, nodding. That's right, son. Don't waste your time raising someone else's children. Mom, we'll do a test tomorrow, Igor said. If it's true that he's not my son, I'm filing for divorce. And I'll ask the real father to pay child support. What about the girls? Galina Petrovna asked, looking at her daughters clinging to their mother. They're my kids, Igor grumbled. They stay with me. Then he pointed at Katya. She can go to her lover. Igor, I didn't cheat on you, Katya shouted. I swear I didn't. But then where did the baby get a different blood type? He stepped closer. Do you think I'm stupid? A month ago you were in the hospital. That friend of yours visited you. And 9 months later, a baby is born who isn't mine. 9 months?
Katya asked.
He was born at 8 months. 8 months? What's the difference? Igor waved his hand. The important thing is he's not mine. He grabbed a bag with baby clothes and threw it into the hallway. We'll do the test tomorrow, he repeated. Then we'll see who's lying. Katya held her crying baby tight, while her daughters shook with fear. Behind the wall, Igor screamed, cursing her loudly. Galina Petrovna joined in, listing every hurt she had. The baby cried, not understanding why his world had suddenly become so scary and cold. Why is Dad, who held me yesterday, now calling me a bastard? Mom, Lisa asked quietly. Will Dad really leave us? I don't know, sweetheart, Katya answered honestly. But she knew one thing. Tomorrow everything would change forever. A new life would begin, and she was too scared even to imagine what it might be like. At the kindergarten, Andrei was practicing in the evening when a strange worry came over him, like something bad had happened to Katya. The DNA test results came a week later. Igor opened the envelope with shaking hands. He read it, then threw the papers to the floor. 0% chance I'm the father, he whispered. 0. Katya sat silently on the couch, holding the baby. The girls clung to her, scared and confused. The week waiting felt like a minefield in the house. Igor drank, shouted, and threatened to throw them out on the street. That's when he stood up, swaying. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce and child support, he said. Let your friend pay for his bastard. Igor, Katya said quietly. The children can hear you. I don't care, he shouted. For a month I thought I had a son. For a month I was happy like a fool, and it turns out I was raising someone else's child. He grabbed a bottle of beer and took a big drink. And don't think you'll get the apartment. It's in my name. You'll live with your lover. Katya held her children closer. She was scared, not for herself, but for her daughters. How would she explain what was happening? Why had their dad suddenly become mean and strange? The next day, Igor really filed for divorce. A week later, the court summons came. The judge, Ekaterina Mikhailovna, an older woman with tired eyes, studied the papers carefully. Your husband demands a divorce and wants to take away your rights to the joint property because of your infidelity. I didn't cheat, Katya said quietly. But the child is not your husband's, Igor's lawyer said. That's true, Katya admitted. But there was no cheating in the marriage. I was with the baby's real father only after our family broke apart, after my husband beat me when I was 7 months pregnant. The judge read the hospital papers carefully. A miscarriage threat caused by domestic violence, she noted. Yes. Where are the minor children living now? With me, 3 daughters and the son. Igor's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client wants to keep custody of the 3 daughters because he is their biological father and the mother is not mentally stable. Mental instability? On what basis? The judge interrupted. The child was born from an affair after the wife was beaten while pregnant, the judge said calmly. And where was your client while she was recovering? Did he visit the children or ask how they were? The lawyer hesitated. After the DNA scandal, Igor drank for a week and didn't even look at the children. The judge made her decision. The marriage is dissolved. The minor children will stay with their mother. The father must pay 50% of his income in child support for the 3 daughters. The apartment stays jointly owned until the youngest child turns 18. Igor jumped up. How can the apartment stay? It's mine. It's your apartment, yes, the judge answered calmly. But your minor children live there. You cannot evict the mother until they're adults. As Katya left the courtroom, she felt strange relief. For the first time in 4 years, someone stood on her side. Someone told Igor no. Andrei waited for her at the courthouse door. He took her bag and hugged her. So, what happened?
Divorce.
The kids stay with me. The apartment too? Katya smiled tiredly. And child support. 50% of his salary for the girls. Andrei hugged her tighter. Now everything will be okay. But Igor didn't give up. He quit his job to avoid paying child support and started working illegally. He drank every day and lived with his mother, who nagged him from morning till night. He hit rock bottom. Lost his family, lost his kids. I can't even show my face to people, Igor snapped. Leave me alone, Mom, he growled. You said it yourself, but you should have saved the family, she answered.
Now what?
Other men were raising his grandson. Galina Petrovna tried to fix things with Katya. She came to the kindergarten. Katya, dear, why are we fighting? The kids are growing up without their grandma. But when Lisa saw her, she hid behind her mom. I don't want to talk to her. She's bad, the little girl said seriously. Why bad? Galina Petrovna asked. You said Mom was bad because she didn't have a brother for me, Lisa explained. Sonia and Masha also avoided their grandma. To them, she was a symbol of the terrible days when their home was like a battlefield. Meanwhile, Katya finally started living a full life. She got a job as head of a kindergarten in a different neighborhood, far from old acquaintances and their judging looks. Ekaterina Mikhailovna, her supervisor, said, You have golden hands. The kindergarten looks new in just 1 month. Katya really changed everything. She organized a theater group, music mornings, and family celebrations. The children loved her, the parents respected her, and at night her home was peaceful and warm. Andrei moved in with them 3 months after the divorce. He carefully and gently won the girls' trust, step by step. One day, will you be our dad? Lisa asked. If you want me to, he answered softly. We want you, the girls said together. Little Igor, now called Mitya, reached out for Andrei like a dad. After 6 months, they moved to a new apartment, bright, spacious, and free of heavy memories. Katya sold her share of the old apartment to Igor for a low price, but she was finally free from the past. Don't you regret it? Andrei asked, watching her pack the last things. No, Katya said firmly. I was unhappy here. You can't buy or sell happiness. On Mitya's birthday, Andrei asked Katya to marry him. No big party. He just got down on one knee in the kids' room while they played and said, Katya, will you marry me? Officially, so all 4 of us become Kuznetsovs. She cried with happiness, and the kids shouted, hooray, and jumped on the bed. Their wedding was small, at Zaksa, with just the kids and a few close friends. But Katya felt like a princess in the simple white dress she picked with her daughters. Mom, you look so beautiful, Sonia said. Like a princess, added Masha. Eliza said seriously, now we have a real family. They spent the summer at a cozy old summer house Andrei rented from his friends. The kids ran in the garden, swam in the river, and they grilled meat on the fire. Mitya took his first steps holding his dad's hand. Dad, he shouted happily whenever Andrei came home from work. Katya watched and couldn't believe such happiness was possible, waking up without fear, loving and being loved just for being herself. What are you thinking about? Andrei hugged her shoulders. She said how glad she was everything turned out this way. Don't you regret all the years you lost? He asked. No. Katya shook her head. If not for those years, I wouldn't appreciate what we have now. At that moment, a familiar figure appeared outside the fence. Igor, thin, unshaven, wearing a crumpled shirt. He stood and watched the happy family, his wife he lost, the children who forgot him, and the man who took his place. Lisa saw him and hid behind her dad. Sonia got scared and cried. Masha didn't even know who he was anymore. To her, Igor was a stranger. Mitya played in the sandbox, happily babbling, unaware that somewhere a man once wanted to be his father. Igor stayed for a minute longer, then slowly walked away. His back was bent, his steps unsure. Alcohol, loneliness, and his own anger had turned a once strong man into a sad shadow. On the porch, Katya held her husband tight. Her true husband who loved her as she was, who became a father to all her children without difference, who gave her what she never dared to dream of, a family where love didn't have to be earned, where you could just be yourself. You know, she said quietly, for the first time in many years, I'm not afraid of tomorrow. That's right, Andre smiled, because tomorrow will be even better than today. And he was right. Ahead of them were years of real happiness, not the kind you have to earn, but the kind that just is every day, every minute, in every look, every word, every hug. And somewhere in a dusty old apartment, the old Igor drank cheap beer and cursed fate, not understanding that he had destroyed the only thing he had. Now, watching someone else's happiness through the fence, he finally understood the price of what he lost. But it was too late. Some mistakes can't be forgiven. Some words can't be taken back. And some people deserve a second chance. Katya got hers.